Let us commence. Well, this is going to be quite the adventure. Something brand new here. I watched with great envy. I guess it was this morning or yesterday the annual meeting of the Lake George Association, and they did theirs by Zoom. And my gosh, you would think it had been done by a Hollywood producer. It was so smooth and so slick. I was very envious. But so we'll do our best here to be as good. Let's see here. So on the agenda tonight, can you all see that agenda? Am I showing it properly? Good. Yeah. Okay. I see a thumbs up. Thank you very much. So there'll be some introductory comments, presentation of reports, which is pretty much like every annual meeting that you would actually attend in person. And you'll be able to submit questions and comments via the chat box. We'll check back in with that check to the chat box every so often to see what's there to be answered or addressed. Voting on simple matters like acceptance of reports or to elect or re-elect directors can be done here probably. But on the more complicated issues, things like the lake management plan or voting about this proposed sewer system or alternatives to it, that will be done a few days later by essentially by SurveyMonkey, which will be in the form of a ballot that you'll get. You'll receive a link as an email that'll get you to the questionnaire. You can go through the questionnaire and vote yes, no, or offer comments. And there'll be other things besides besides what you see here on the meeting tonight. Some other questions that we'd like to know about in your relationship with the lake. There'll be a brief review of the 2019 annual meeting minutes. And I say brief because they've already been posted on the website for quite a long time. There will be a report of the Financial Review Committee. And the Financial Review Committee's report has also been on the website for quite a long time. So we'll just present the highlights. And if you have questions, of course, you can ask them. We will present the proposed 2020 Lake Management Plan as posted on the website. And then some discussion and some presentation of the options for controlling septic system leaking into the lake. You've all probably seen or have some familiarity with the community sewer system proposal from Delaware Engineering Company. There'll be some discussion and presentation about the septic maintenance district alternative. That's also been posted on the website quite a while. And if anybody has any other alternatives, we'd love to hear them, but right now we just don't know of any. The last item on the agenda, on the formal agenda, would be election or re-election of the directors. And then if anybody else has anything else that they'd like to discuss, we can do that. So then, with that, if I can get this page to move, there we go. So first of all, I'd like to offer my own report, which I would normally do at a regular meeting. And the first thing I want to do is offer a really big, sincere thank you to all of the people who make this association go. I'm very impressed. I'm so impressed with the board of directors that we have right now. It is such an energetic, caring, and knowledgeable group. They're really engaged. They put way more hours in than I'm sure they ever imagined that they would. And just to name them one by one, my neighbor Kim Roberts is on the board of directors, completing the term that his wife Mary originally started, but she wanted to leave the board, so Kim was appointed by our board to replace her. And his term is ending tonight, so he'll be up for re-election. Dave Elliott, our vice president, who put in enormous hours on the lake management plan as the chair of that committee, and has been so helpful in doing audiovisual things. For example, his very professional recording of the sewer proposal meeting back in January, which is also on our website. Chris Whitaker was appointed to take Ward Freeman's place. Ward, as you know, spent some 20 years on the board of directors, and I want to offer Ward a huge, gigantic thanks from all of us, because his expertise on the board of directors and his commitment was really something. And he's entitled to take some time off now. And we've been very fortunate to have Chris Whitaker accept our nomination from the board to complete the remaining 1 year of his term. And Chris comes to the board with credentials equally as impressive as Ward's, with a lot of professional experience in college training in environmental management. How perfect could that be? Norm Stewart he's the old timer now on the board as our treasurer, has served a term as president, and has been a treasurer now for almost 6 years, 5 years and going on, and received high commendations from the Financial Review Committee for the work he has done. Pat Huff is on the board, and Pat, every single week, Pat goes around collecting all the bottles and cans that you folks leave out by the roadside, and turns them in for donations to the board, to the association. I think it's somewhere around $400 to $500 per year at least that you folks are donating to the association via her weekly pickup, and it's a labor of love that she does, and we appreciate it. And she also has organized the yard sales and does a very professional job of promoting them. As we go further around the lake, Maria Flores Siebert has become our secretary, and what an energetic bit of sunshine she brings to the board with her taking of the minutes of the meetings and offering so many really good suggestions based upon her experience with other nonprofits. Michael Lynn McClenahan is a director on the board. She had been secretary, and now she is a director, and we appreciate her input very, very much. Christina Miller has been a very valuable member of the board, always asking the good questions, the questions that other people just didn't think about. And she's also been a contributor in helping to produce the notebook, the loose leaf notebook. We call it the welcome guide, sort of like a welcome wagon. When new folks move to Duane Lake, that notebook is taken to those folks as part of the welcome to Duane Lake process. And Chris has been the one who has produced that and revised it and produced it and revised it some more. I think have I forgotten? Well, good gosh, have I forgotten someone? I sure hope not. I think that summarizes it. And I want to thank Ken Pearsall for his work in doing the CSLAP monitoring. CSLAP stands for Citizens Statewide Lake Assessment Program. And it's a program that's coordinated both by DEC and the New York State Federation of Lake Associations. And it provides us an opportunity and the materials to monitor the changing lake conditions in our lake. And we have over 30 years of data. Ken hasn't been doing all those 30, but he's done it probably at least 10 or 15. And we really use that data to make decisions about how things are changing or not changing in the lake. And his most recent report is also on our website. I want to thank all the people who volunteered for the Earth Day. As you can see the photograph there, that happens to have been from last year, not this year, because the pandemic and all the social distancing stuff prevented us from getting together. But every year we get about 25 people who show up to go out and pick up litter all around the lake and some of the roads even beyond. And good grief, we get a lot of it. And it's a good thing that they go out and get it, because it would still be there if they hadn't. I want to thank the people who take care of the little decorative flower pots that the Duane Lake Association placed out around the lake years ago. Kind of forgotten, but some volunteers still step forward every year to take care of them, to put new plants in those and things and water them. Vicki and Jay Tansman have adopted the one out by the Duane Lake sign at the top of North Mansion Hill as you come up the road from the highway down below. They take care of that one. My wife Nancy has adopted the one at the intersection of North Mansion and Duane Lake Road. And I see there's one also in front of the home of Mary and Kim Roberts. They take care of that one. So thank you to those folks. I mentioned Pat Huff already with the return of bottles. And I also want to mention the roving feast and rowing feast. There will be none this year because of the pandemic, but in the past years, Kim and Mary Roberts and Jay Tansman have taken care of that in recent years. I want to thank Karen Connors and Lori Wagner for being the people who take care of that message board out there at the top of North Mansion Hill. Anytime I have a suggestion for a new message that needs to be put there, they're the ones who go put all the new letters in. And when I don't have any ideas at all, they think of their own messages very creatively, and I so appreciate what they do. The Financial Review Committee, that was David Vincent, Jerry Evans, and Mike Gammons this year were on a financial review committee. And basically, it's sort of like an audit, but less formal. And Norm Stewart, our treasurer, gets together all of his financial documents and hands it over to the committee and say, here it is, folks. What do you think? Do you see any mistakes, any problems? And we've now done that for the past 2 years. In both years, the financial review committee has given Norm and his accounting high marks. There was a bylaws committee not too far back, just prior to last year's meeting, and a lot of our members participated in that. Ward Freeman was in on that, and Pat Huff, and I think Chris Miller was in on that, and Marco Pizzuto. I've probably forgotten some people, but that committee put in a lot of hours getting ready for the incorporation process. I don't want to forget also my neighbor 2 houses down, Kathy Hoteling. Every time I do a newsletter for the association, Kathy being a retired English teacher, how perfect could that be? Kathy, would you please proofread the newsletter? And she does that for me. So I appreciate that so much. Let's see if I got some more people to admit here, I see.
Somebody else is sharing a screen.
Yeah, I see that.
That's, gotta be careful now.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can get back to where I was. Let's see. Kind of interrupted my train of thought here. Oh, goody, now I have to put that back on there somehow. Pardon me, folks, I have to go find my report again because somebody hopped up on the screen and I don't know where to find it now.
Do we know Elizabeth Santoro? Forgive me.
Yes, yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Ah, excellent. What a coincidence. Okay, and then of course I mentioned the Lake Management Plan Committee. Or did I not? Oh, the Lake Management Committee would have been Dave Elliott as chairman, Ken Pearsall. Many of you have probably read on and on and on my praises of his professional expertise that he brings to our neighborhood, to our community, having recently retired from the U.S. Geological Survey Water Resources Division. Again, how perfect could that be? Ken was on that committee. Dirk Felton, who works for DEC, albeit in the air quality division, but certainly with environmental management skills. Chris Whitaker, I mentioned earlier, with her background in environmental management. Tom McClanahan, the younger, junior, Tom McClanahan the second, who is a professional wildlife biologist, served in that committee. So again, we had an extremely well-qualified committee to present to us a lake management plan, and I thank them all for that. So what has your association and your board of directors been up to in 2019 and early 2020?
Hey, one thing, Alan, your screen share has stopped working.
This is not good. This is not good. Thank you for telling me that.
I was waiting for you to take a breath.
No, I got it there. I think I got it.
And there you go.
All right. All right. Okay. 2, 3. Okay. There we go. So in the past year, you may recall from last year's annual meeting that there was a report from a gentleman by the name of Carl Dice. His daughter, Kayla, now lives here in the lake, and Carl is a retired dam safety engineer from the Army Corps of Engineers. Boy, are we lucky with the expertise that we end up with here. And Carl volunteered to write an evaluation of the dam, which he did, and we took very seriously. So since that time, based upon Carl's advice, we have gone to the backside of the dam, down low, where there's a pipe that comes in under the dam from the lake. It has a valve in it, and there's a bit of a leak. The valve is leaking somewhat, and Carl's concern was, how much is it leaking? At what rate? And is it going to get worse? And if it gets worse, we're in trouble. So basically, we sent a crew of volunteers down there to do some digging around. We found where the water was leaking out. We established a little basin to do some collecting, and we determined that the rate of leakage is about 1 gallon per minute, which compared to the whole lake is not a whole heck of a lot. It's a pretty low rate, and we've now measured that twice, and it's stable. It has not changed. but we will continue to monitor that to see if it does change. And if it does change, you'll be the first to know. But so far, so good. It's just a very small amount of leakage. And Carl told us, Carl Dice said that he has never seen a dam where that valve did not leak somewhat. So he was not overly concerned when he saw that small rate of leakage. We also had some concerns about the elevation or the height of the water in the lake. Is it too high? Is it too low? Is it just right? And how do we know? And one of the ways that we would make a decision or make a judgment is to figure out what's it supposed to be. How do we know what it's supposed to be? Is there such a thing as supposed to be? Looking at the history of the lake, we know that a spillway was torn out in the 1957 after a flood of very high water, and the state of New York built a new spillway, somewhat lower. So we have basically taken some elevation surveys, which I'll show you later on in this presentation. We'll show you how that spillway is no longer functional, and the water is now about a foot or so higher than that spillway, and we'll discuss that later. We've also been concerned about livestock farming upstream and its possible contamination of the stream coming into our lake. We have contacted the Soil and Water Conservation District and Cornell Cooperative Extension and asked them if they could intercede to have some conversations with the particular livestock farmer, and they've done that. And they have offered some suggestions on how he could change his management practices, move his manure pile away from the stream, et cetera. It remains to be seen if that will actually happen. And you will see in the lake management plan proposal some money set aside or proposed for testing of that water to determine if in fact it is specifically any cattle source contamination coming into the lake. There are tests that can identify it specifically as coming from cattle or horses or whatever other species you want to investigate. And so we will if that plan is approved, we will use some of that money for that test to find out exactly what the story is. We spent a great deal of time on the sewer proposal, and an alternative to that, having multiple conversations with engineering firms, town board, town attorney, conference calls, Zoom sessions with the town board, et cetera, to try to determine what the best alternatives are there and what's practical, what's possible, and what the town board would actually be willing to do. And then now, of course, and what the residents of Duane Lake would be wanting to do. We've also spent some time discussing and investigating and, shall we say, collaborating with or discussing with the town board, how did that new house get built on land that was not supposed to be built on? There were deed restrictions that would have prohibited it. There were resolutions by the town board and the planning board that would have prohibited it. But nonetheless, the subdivision was allowed by the town. The house was built. It's a done deal. We fought that battle as hard as we could and as best as we knew how, but we lost. And so I think the only thing we can do now is to, at the appropriate time, is to welcome the new owner, who probably had no idea of any of this that was going on, and no idea that the land was not supposed to have been subdivided. We've also spent some time pursuing the matter of unauthorized fishing on the lake. There have been a few individuals that have persistently and without authorization been fishing on the lake. And it turns out that now one of those key people has been given legal access, actually has been made a co-owner of one of those access lanes. And again, the association, frankly, just got legally outmaneuvered. And we are investigating new ways to keep further encroachment of that kind happening. We'll have more to report on that perhaps in a subsequent meeting in a few months. Harmful algae blooms take up a lot of time. We get reports, typically late summer, early fall, sometimes even up into November, reports from the county health department or from DEC saying, you have had an harmful algae bloom report for your lake. And you have seen my emails saying these notices have come in, you might want to be cautious, maybe don't drink it, keep your dogs out of the lake and so on. And also trying to find out what then. do we ever know, does the state ever tell us when it is no longer a harmful algae bloom? The answer is no. We would have to hire private testing to determine that for ourselves. So in those cases, simple caution is the best alternative for all of us. And we've developed a lake management plan as per the bylaws, and our job tonight is to discuss that with you, and we hope to get your permission to do these maintenance and management projects. And there's the matter of weed harvesting. In recent years, many years probably, this has always been at the top of the list, not the bottom. And removing those weeds, which you no longer see out there to any degree, removing them before they dissolve and fall to the bottom of the lake goes a long way towards removing phosphorus from the lake. Phosphorus, the weeds take up the phosphorus from the lake bottom, take them up into the plant, and then upon their decay, they discharge that phosphorus into the water, thereby fueling algae blooms. If we could get those weeds out of the lake prior to that, we would go a long way towards preventing algae blooms. The problem is, it's expensive. We have contacted at least 3 different companies. I would thank Jim Gain for his work on that, helping to do that, and investigating, getting price quotes for companies to come in on a contract basis to spend a few days harvesting all the weeds and getting them out of the lake. The best price we have found is $20,000 per year, every year. It's not a one-time thing. It has to happen every single year. So meanwhile, now we have heard from our colleagues over at Mariahville Lake that they intend to buy a machine, which then opens up an opportunity for us to possibly lease that machine or rent it from them for the time that we need it. And there'll be some discussion about that alternative later on in the meeting. So that pretty much concludes my report. Treasury report, and that has been posted, the report of the Financial Review Committee reviewing the books for 2019 has been on the website for quite a while. And newsletters had links to that so you could read that if you wanted to. At the moment, the Treasury stands at about $12,000 roughly. A year ago it was $9,800. Paid memberships today is I think actually today it's 59. I think it went up one today, but we're still a long way from 89, which is the number of homes around the lake. But 59 is a relatively high number in recent years. The membership is definitely going up little by little every year. It takes some work. We have to do some nagging and cajoling and requesting and asking. And also some people add additional donations when they send their dues in, which also helps the Treasury a great deal. Where did the money go? Approximately $700 a year is on newsletters, correspondence, postage, just liaison with various state agencies and lawyers and the town board and so on. $520 a year for the nice New York State Federation of Lake Associations membership, which is very valuable. We learn a lot from them, and it also gets us into the CSLAP program. We spent about $700 on an attorney. That was a one-time thing. We now spend $783 a year on insurance, and 2 years ago, we spent $500 on partial canal cleanout. Those have been the big items, and really so that you can see why our Treasury balance is going up, because frankly, we haven't spent very much money. At the present time, the insurance is now the big ticket item on an annual basis, but it's pretty necessary for a corporation to do that. Secretary's report. Those also have been posted on the website with links to that so you could read them. The highlights of the 2019 annual meeting minutes. And I really kind of wonder why, I've always wondered where did the custom of having an annual meeting minutes approved a whole year later when no one actually remembers what the meeting was about? It just seems like an odd sort of thing, but it's a custom, and we will follow that tonight. So last year, we reported at the meeting that the association was now incorporated. The new bylaws were now adopted to include the requirement for an annual lake management plan. There was a dues increase, and we elected a couple of new officers and directors. That about summarizes what happened last year. and a state of the lake report. That too has Ken Pearsall's recent report has been posted on the website, and it was very thorough in Ken's inimicable way. The highlights, he said 2019 was actually a pretty normal year. There were some oddities. There was an increased salt content, or at least indicators of salt, went up 50% in the past 10 years. That to me is significant, and that's worth our board attention in the future. Some discussions with the town highway department or others about what do we do about that. And that does affect wildlife, that does affect fish. The 2019 water temperature was a bit warmer than previous years due to the warmer air temperature. Algae situation was mostly typical, Ken says. And the June through August rainfall was about 2 inches above normal last year. The pH, the indicator of acidity or alkalinity, declined from an alkaline 8.1 to a almost neutral 7.1. Not sure why that would be the case. Ken had some theories which you can read about in his report. And there are other things about the lake too that Ken did not get into because it didn't have to do with chemical analysis of the lake, but we have the issue of ice cutting away the shorelines, and that gets us into the discussion of how high the water should be or what is appropriate or desirable. And then we have the matter of debris and mud accumulating in the culvert, which you see there, and also further downstream. And you will see in the elevation study that we will show you here in a few minutes that those things, the gradually accumulated debris in the culvert and a riffle that has developed downstream, actually is acting like a nozzle on the stream. It is choking off the flow out, and it has raised the level of the lake about 16 inches higher than that spillway I mentioned earlier. The lake is actually now about 16 inches higher than the spillway that the state put in 1957. Is that a concern? We have to discuss that. As I mentioned, there's a nozzle of the hose, and this is the inlet that we're talking about. And in this photograph, we have a work crew that climbed into the water in, I don't know, September or October to clean out some residue of a beaver dam that was also choking the flow. This is the elevation survey. We had a young man from the Schenectady County Soil and Water Conservation District come to our outlet canal in late May of this year. And we wanted to know precisely with numbers, just how high are these obstacles? Are we imagining things, or are they indeed obstacles that are impeding the outflow from the lake? And how does it all compare to that spillway? So that green circle is the cove. That bright green bar that you see across the outlet canal, that is the spillway that the state of New York put in there in 1957. And that was for the purpose of surveying, that was established as the 0 point. The orange bar that you see is the entrance to the culvert, and that is 0.95 feet higher than the spillway. So yes, you heard that right. The town of Duanesburg installed a culvert that is higher than the spillway, and they are not interested in changing that. The red bar going through the culvert, that indicates the culvert itself and the about 5 to 6 inches of debris that is in there, raising the level of that. The purple bar represents the outside, or the downflow, the outflow side of the culvert, which is actually lower than the inflow side, so that's sort of irrelevant. And then way downstream, you'll see another red bar, and that is a little, we call a riffle. It's a high spot in the bottom, a bar, almost like a sandbar underneath the stream. My own theory is that it's a tree root that has grown and gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and raised itself up. But that now is the nozzle. That is the high point. And that is about 16 inches higher than the spillway. So you will find in the lake management plan, the proposed lake management plan, you will find a proposal for the association to engage in work that would remove the riffle, that would take it down about about 1.5 inches at most. And then at which point the debris inside the culvert would become the governing factor. And if we remove the debris that's in there, that would bring the lake down to 0.95 feet above the spillway. And since the town is not interested in addressing the culvert situation, we propose that that is where it would stay. That would be, we would settle for the inflow side of that culvert becoming the governor of the lake level, essentially 1 foot higher than the spillway. And we also have talked about doing as they used to do back in the 1950s. By reading historical files and interviewing old timers, we have learned that in the old days, the old spillway that was there, in the summertime, or actually in the springtime, they would stack up boards on that spillway to raise the lake in the summertime for recreational use. So the water is plenty high when you want to go sailing or go boating, whatever. But sometime around probably September or early October, those boards are removed, thereby bringing the lake level back down to the level of that orange bar, a foot higher than the spillway, so as to reduce the ice damage to the shoreline around the lake. That's the proposal, and we can discuss that as we go forward. So that's the elevation survey. I suppose I should stop here now to see if there are any questions that have been typed into the chat box, and let me see if I can find those. If I can even find the chat box. Let's see here. Let me see here. Chat box, resume share. Watch me just cut the whole thing right out and end the whole meeting by accident. Are you hearing me all right still? Yeah, thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate that. Okay, participants 30. We got a couple more to admit. Did that. Okay. Chat box, where are you? Well, I'm puzzled, but my chat box seemed to have disappeared. Pardon my inexperience with this. More chat, there we go. So far, no questions have come in. Okay. Now, let's see if I can get back to this. Resume share. This is embarrassing. Well, Dave Elliott trying to help me out. Hello, Dave. Hello, Dave. You're not there. Dave, are you there? I'm sorry, folks. This is really embarrassing, but I'll try to get back to the program. New share. Okay. Making progress. Wasn't for lack of rehearsal, I'll tell you that. Okay, I think I'm back. Okay. Are you able to see the program page now? It should be the page of the elevation survey. I have one yes. Okay, okay, good. All right. Okay. Since there are no questions, I'll address this question of the report from Mariahville. A question was sent in earlier on about the fact that the lake management plan did not address much at all, if at all, the matter of harvesting weeds, because it had been such a high priority discussion point in previous years. And the short answer is it's because we are waiting to see what Mariahville does with their purchase plan and to see if we can tap into that, which would basically solve the problem. And we know we can't afford the $20,000 a year rental, so essentially it's the only game in town right now. But I did ask Tom Collins, who is the president of the Mariahville Civic Association, as they call their group, to participate in our meeting tonight so he could answer your questions that you might have about that. But I got a phone call from Tom, actually an email from Tom late yesterday saying something had come up. He had planned to participate, but tonight was the only night he could get a quorum for his own board meeting, so that's what he chose to do. He's meeting with his own board tonight. However, he did send a written report in response to a number of questions that I sent to him about it. I asked him what the status of his plan was and so on. So this is Tom's report to you about their plan to acquire a weed harvesting machine. He writes, the Mariahville Civic Association remains committed to purchasing a weed cutter for our lake management plan. After much research and conversation, the decision to purchase a cutter as opposed to a weed harvester has been made for the environmental considerations. A weed harvester oftentimes is a machine that actually kind of grabs the plants and yanks them out by the roots from the bottom, and it causes some degree of environmental distress or turbulence. And so they've chosen to go for a machine that simply cuts the weeds perhaps halfway or 3/4 of the way down, but you still get almost all the phosphorus out anyway. He goes on to write, activity has been halted for the past few months since both manufacturing and sales businesses have been closed. Our preference would be a slightly used machine. We might purchase a new one, but lag times on getting a new machine range up to 1 year. We have switched banking institutions to put ourselves into a better position to get a loan if needed. We currently have approximately $35,000 dedicated toward the purchase of a machine or to use as a down payment and are prepared to borrow the rest. In fact, I will add, they actually dropped their dam insurance to save $7,000 a year to put that towards a weed cutter machine. That's how strongly they felt about it. Lastly, he writes, we would be happy to work with your organization on how to cooperatively make the weed cutter available for use in Duane Lake. So that's the report from Tom. And I would also remind you that even since apparently no one is asking questions here yet in the chat box, you can still send in questions for the next several days. I'll say for the next 5 days to DuaneLakeAssoc@gmail.com, and we will get answers for you, send the answers back to you, and also post them on our website so everyone can see the question and the answer. And there are also already some questions and answers posted there about the lake management plan and about the proposed sewer district. So, January 28th, Delaware Engineering made a proposal to our association, and it was a lengthy proposal, a lengthy presentation. The video of that has been on our website since then, as has been their PowerPoint presentation to summarize it all. So I suspect you all have had a chance, you should have had a chance to see it, to read it. The newsletters have had links to them. So it should be pretty much familiar to you. There you go. So in short, the sewer system proposal from Delaware Engineering would be basically a sewer pipe around the lake connected to a community scale, or what I call a supersized leach field like you might have in your backyard, but a really, really big one. And some land would have to be found for that. And Delaware Engineering proposal says that they project that would cost around $2,300 per household per year. And that's a better price than it was a year ago or 2 years before that, when the first proposal was made. Delaware Engineering made a proposal 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even now, where they presented 3 different alternative sewer systems. And this was one of the options. And this particular option at that time was over $3,000 per household. But Delaware Engineering reports to us that the formula for funding from New York State has changed and is more attractive. But the bottom line still would be, they project a cost of $2,300 per household per year for a pretty much a conventional sewer system that funnels everything to a big leach field. The board felt that it was irresponsible to present that one and only alternative to you as members of the Duane Lake community. There is an alternative in law. New York State law does provide for an alternative. And that alternative is called a septic maintenance district. And it is in place in at least a half a dozen communities in New York State that we know of. It's not widely known, it's not widely used, but it is there, and it is done. And here's what it means in a nutshell. It means that a lesser amount of money, and the projection here is under $700 per year of tax revenue per household, is pooled to hire a professional inspection service that would inspect some fraction of all the septic systems around the lake every year. And that would be mandatory. So it might be every 3 years, as is the case in one district. We know of one district that it's every 5 years. So that changes the arithmetic, obviously, as to how many inspections you're paying for. But these would be thorough, high-tech, complete septic system inspections, not just a dye test. It would be much more thorough than that. And the results of those tests would be submitted to the county health department. And those that are found failing would have to replace them. And that's a sad fact for those whose systems, and maybe mine's one of them, for those people who would have to replace them. But the alternative is to continue to have leaky septic systems leaking fecal waste and urine into your lake, into your drinking water. That's the choice. How do you keep that stuff out of your drinking water? And here are the 2 choices that we know of. If anybody else has other ideas for how to keep that stuff out of the lake, I think we'd love to hear them, but we don't know of any. Some of those septic systems in the maintenance district, and maybe we should actually call it a septic inspection district, because some of the septic maintenance districts do provide more thorough services and actually take over the repair process. We're not contemplating that. We're contemplating something that would be simply mandatory inspections. And then if your system is 90 years old and it's a 55-gallon oil drum in the ground and leaking into the lake, it ought to be replaced. I did pursue at great length a program offered by New York State called a septic replacement program. It provides 50% subsidy to private landowners to replace their backyard septic systems. I pursued that until the cows came home, and I failed because the ruling from DEC was that because Duane Lake is a private lake, we are not eligible. I think that's a false ruling. I think it's legally on shaky ground, but unless we had a very large legal fund to fight it in court, we're not going to get anywhere. I went so far as to have the town supervisor of Guilderland write a letter of support to our qualifying for the program, because after all, the reservoir in their town, which they use, the headwaters of that reservoir are Duane Lake. The mayor of Watervliet, that owns Watervliet Reservoir in Guilderland, wrote a letter to DEC legal department championing our request to have this program put into effect for Duane Lake. DEC was not interested. Not interested at all. Private lake, nope, sorry, can't do it. So the only other alternative is that each individual homeowner pays the entire cost of replacement, which is ugly, unacceptable, expensive for some people, but it is in fact what they do at Otsego Lake. Otsego Lake, which is the drinking water supply for Cooperstown, has exactly this program. And they do in fact have the individual homeowner pay the bill. It is their responsibility. And under law, that is the case. If the health department finds your septic system to be not performing properly, it's your cost. So as I say, that's the choice. You can have urine and fecal material going into your lake, or you can have a program to prevent that. It's your choice. And if in about 5 days, there will be a ballot arriving in your email box that'll ask you to vote on these choices. These votes on this particular question have no legal weight whatsoever. They are purely advisory, and we give the results to the town board for their consideration, because the town board is the one that makes the decision. I will tell you that they have some reservations about the septic inspection district, because they don't know about it. It was not familiar to them or to their town attorney. And so we have a conference call. The town board has a conference call with our board and the two gentlemen from Cooperstown who run the program over there, so the town board can learn about it and learn how it works. The town board might still say, no thanks, it's too confusing, or we've never done it before, so therefore we don't want to do it. It's too new, we don't want to do it. They could say that. We know how to do sewer districts. We've got 3 of them already, so let's do that. They may say that, but they aren't going to do any of that without a strong vote of approval from this community here at Duane Lake. They've made that clear to me, and I take them at their word. So that's the deal on the sewer system and septic upgrades. And so the next thing we have on the slate is 2 vacancies for the board of directors. They're not really vacancies exactly. Christina Miller and Kim Roberts both have expressed interest in continuing on for another 3-year term. So they are standing as candidates, but any dues-paying member is eligible to say, hey, I want to join, or I want to be on the board. I want to run for office. You can do that. So if anyone would like to nominate themselves, their spouse, their neighbor, you are free to do so now. And I guess I will have to try to pull up everyone's screen here to see if anyone raises their hand to say, yeah, I want to be on the board, or I know somebody that should be on the board, and I've talked to that person. And please do not nominate someone if you haven't talked to them first. We had that happen one time, and it was pretty awkward because the person got elected and never had volunteered. So please don't do that. So if you know of someone, raise your hand and let us know that you'd like to do that. I'm not seeing any hands up right at the moment. Or email them to me. You can email them to DuaneLakeAssoc@gmail.com if you wish to nominate someone with whom you have coordinated first. Let's do it that way. Unmute Dave Elliott. I'll try to. I'll try to. So I don't see anybody's hand up. Okay. I'm going to try to go back to the chat box and see if there are any questions that have come in that way. I may blunder through it again and lose a few screens along the way and have to find my way back slowly, but bear with me if I do that. And let's see here. Any Kennedy. Let's see. Stop share. There's Dave. Dave, are you muted? You are muted, I guess. Yeah, all right, I'll see what I can do about that. Sorry about that. It was entirely unintentional. You should be good to go.
It wasn't your fault I did that. Hey, while you're there,
unmute Maria too. And then Maria, don't touch that dial, because if you mute yourself, you can't unmute. Found that out.
All right. All right. I had to ask her to unmute. Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. I copied some questions from, just put them all in one spot if you'd
Oh,
like
good.
me to read them. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. I have questions on culvert, questions on the weeds, questions on the septic. Where do you want me to start?
Let's start with the culvert.
Okay. So one of the questions we had was, can a lawyer help us get the town to help with the culvert pipe? And another one is, do we have access to the water where we can put the oh wait, that's a harvester question, sorry. So the culvert pipe, yeah, do we want to ask a lawyer to help us with the town?
I think the answer is yes, if we can come up with the money to pay. Well, the attorney who helped us with the incorporation process, I seem to recall her fee was $300 an hour. So it would probably cost us that much to just pose the question of, here are the details of the situation. How do you analyze this situation, and do we have a case? So that's probably, yeah, we could probably try to find $300 or $600 to do that. And if not, we can ask for donations to help pay for that. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Okay, so the next, there seemed to be a lot of discussion about the weeds and the harvester, where to put it in, angle of property damage, just in case, you know.
Right.
We needed an area to remove the weeds. I didn't put down who wrote this, but I've spoken to people on the lake who use the harvester and chemical treatment. They were happy with the results. They wanted to know, will there be proposed amendments to the management, the lake management plan before the vote, as far as, I'm going to say that was related also to the weed removal.
Okay.
part.
Okay. As far as locations go, about 3 years ago, maybe 4, I went around the lake and talked to people who owned properties that looked as though they would be convenient for launching such a weed harvesting machine, and then 3 or 4 more other people who had properties where the harvest could go to the shorefront and dump them onto the lawn, or onto a conveyor belt that would go into a truck. The more places you have to discharge the weeds on land, the more efficient the machine is. If you have the weed harvest machine go into the water at one place and has to keep going back to that one place from all over the lake, it's a very slow process, and so your rental price goes up drastically. The access place happens to be owned by the person who just built the new house. So you can see how important it is to maintain good relations with that person. And the previous owner said, sure, you can do that. Yeah, you have your permission, but now that person doesn't own it anymore. So we have to try to cultivate good relations with that person. And no, there's no reason why we shouldn't, because as I said earlier, I have very strong suspicions that that person had no clue that that land was not supposed to have been subdivided or built upon. No clue, but the town allowed it. The town okayed it, done deal, she's home free, and probably still quite innocent about it. Yeah.
So the next part of that question was, will there be proposed amendments to the lake management plan before the vote?
They were not contemplated, but frankly, from the standpoint of democratic process, I think that they really ought to be allowed. Or I think what we'd like to do probably is have the plan voted upon as a package as is, and then be amended there afterwards. In other words, if someone says, well, there was a question embedded in there earlier about chemical use. Now, the chemical use is related to the weeds in that it's probably referring to copper sulfate, which is the only chemical that, to my knowledge, that has ever been used in the lake. And DEC will not allow that anymore. it's out the window, not allowed. So in a sense, it's a moot question. So I don't know of any chemical use that's ever been used in this lake for controlling the weeds themselves. There are herbicides that will kill various aquatic weeds, but I will tell you right now that I don't want that in my drinking water, and probably a lot of other people don't either. So I don't think it's in the cards. So as far as if someone has a proposal for weed harvesting, I guess I'd like to hear it. And does it say who proposed that? I could ask that person what they're.
It's in the chat. It's in the chat. Everybody's names are on their questions.
Yeah.
Further for that, there are a couple of other things.
I guess I would like to ask that person what their proposed amendment to the plan would be.
Okay. If anybody wants to save the chat, there's a triple button over to the right, and you can go from there and save it. If you're want to go back through and have a look at the question and either email it to Alan or however you want to do that, Alan.
Does anyone want to propose an amendment verbally aloud? I will gladly unmute you and let you express that. Just kind of raise your hand or wave at me or something.
The question regarding an amendment, I think, came from Paul Karakin. I think. Paul, is that true? Wave your hand if that's a yes. I guess that's a yes. That's who asked the question.
So Paul, you are unmuted. What's your idea?
As far as an amendment to the management plan,
Sure. Yeah.
I see that there's $3,500 for proposed for putting in riprap in front of the dock, and not this year, but perhaps in the next year or two. And it's in the area for here's the action we're going to take in the next year. So I'd like to remove that before voting 2/3 to just say, yeah, go ahead and do that anytime in the future. I don't care.
Okay.
Can I speak to this lake management plan a little bit?
You may, certainly. And I would remind Dave was the chairperson of this committee and had a lot of involvement with it. So yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Which just means I was the wrangler of volumes of information, not the expert. Long story short, riprap is something that's been discussed on and off over the last couple of years, and it was something that was brought to the committee's attention a little bit late in the game. We looked at it and went, yeah, absolutely, that should be included in the plan. But at the end of the day, there's only so much money in that treasury, okay? But other things in the plan may not play. We might not be able to do this, that, or the other thing in that plan because of unforeseen circumstances. So to have a couple of options is why we left the riprap in there. There are some folks that feel that riprap is more important, let's say, than cleaning out the culvert. So we put both of those things in there with dollar figures tied to each of them. It's clear, just from a common sense standpoint, we don't have enough money to do all the things that are in this plan. So as a board, we intend to move ahead with discretion and being prudent and guarding the funds and do whichever of these things we can actually accomplish. We're still studying the riprap in terms of how to get machines in there, how to put it in, et cetera, et cetera. We may have better numbers. Numbers might be worse. If they're worse, well, we can't move ahead without talking to the board. But I think we're okay with numbers. The two big things in there are cleaning out the culvert and the riprap. My guess is it's probably going to be one or the other this year. So you're right, Paul. We might not get to that, but I think we felt collectively that we didn't necessarily want to shut the door on either one of them. It's been hard given COVID, blah, 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 to be able to get people together to have good qualified conversation on any of this stuff. So leaving the door open would be certainly appreciated from a board standpoint, but you can rest assured that we're not going to do this list soup to nuts. We'd love to, but I don't think it's feasible.
Dave, if I may, I'd like to add to that and say that, and I should have said this earlier, that practically nothing in this lake management plan, at least the big projects, none of that can get done without approval from DEC. And so I've been in contact with various DEC officials about what steps to take and how to apply for this and how to apply for that. And so far I've had very receptive, cooperative conversations or email exchanges with them. But the bottom line is that we will have to file at least one, maybe two environmental impact statements. It'll have to be reviewed by at least 3 different agencies or departments within DEC, Bureau of Dam Safety, I guess it's called, of Wildlife People, the Bureau of Environmental Health, I understand wants to be involved with it now, and also the Army Corps of Engineers. So who knows how long that's all going to take. And if one of them should happen to pop forward and be approved before the other, it would seem to me that's the one we would do first because we got permission to do it.
They're both important, Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there are two probably important clarifications that need to be mentioned. One is riprap. Somebody's written in the chat. Riprap is the rocks on the shore to prevent erosion. So it would be giant kind of earthworks. I would guess, right? Is that right, Alan?
On the water side face of the dam.
Okay. And then the other question is, it would be on the dam, right? That would have to go. Okay.
And when Carl Dice inspected the dam, part of his report said that the riprap on the facing of the dam was not in good shape. It ought to be repaired. And in our first draft of the lake management plan, that had been totally forgotten. We had been left out. We just totally forgot about it. But then someone reminded us of that it was in the report, that it was important. And, oh yeah, that's right. Gee, how we forget that? So we put it in. And so there it is. And so I would encourage people to view this lake management plan not so much as a specific, thou shalt do these things on this date for this price, but more as a to-do list. Anybody who's got a to-do list at home knows you check them off as you can, but you don't always get them all done at all. Sometimes they get delayed.
The riprap process would be, a bunch of big stones.
Yeah.
That would then have to be moved and essentially poured over the lake face of the dam. And there are more things that we need to look at about that. But we have approved a way to get in there. Okay, we have permission to get in there and do it, et cetera, et cetera. It's all a work in progress, but it's an active work in progress.
And we also have, I think correctly, someone has pointed out to us that we have to be super careful how we do this, because if it's done carelessly, without forethought, we might end up damaging that pipe that goes under the bottom of the dam. So all these nuances have to be considered and could delay the actual implementation. I don't know if that answers your question, Paul, but at least it explains our rationale.
Maria,
any more?
Do you want me to talk at all about this outlet canal biz, or just let?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, in a nutshell, folks, there's been shoreline damage, quite a bit of it in recent years, and it seems to both the layman and our friends at Schenectady County Soil and Water Conservation District that the high level of the water when it comes wintertime is what's getting us. That freezes and it just beats on the shore. I've lost shoreline. I know Pat's lost shoreline. I know Dennis and Ian lost shoreline. I know lots of folks have lost shoreline. So not that that's the impetus for studying this. It's just always been the town put the culvert in so much higher than the New York State control years ago. So we kept looking at it. Finally, we got it surveyed. And the survey just absolutely answer a ton of questions. There are some folks on this call right now who knew the answers to those questions before the surveys were done, but at the end of the day, you have to have those numbers on a piece of paper by somebody qualified to put them there in order to bring them to bodies such as ours and or to the town to discuss it with them. We took this to the town and they went, don't bother me. Okay, that's basically what it is. It's never a done issue. We can still talk to the town. We do talk to the town, but for the most part, they don't want anything to do with this. I'm not going to ask Alan to go back to that drawing, but in a nutshell, the spillway is useless. It's a foot and change underwater. It's like 18 inches underwater. Now, mind you, these measurements were taken when the water was considerably higher. We started to take them in the beginning of March. Here comes Corona. We took them, I want to say late April is when we got in the water and took these measurements. Water was still high at that point. Right now, things are low. I don't have to explain that to anybody. But when that water's high, it was just sitting there because of that riffle downstream. That riffle downstream is 1.5 inches higher than the inlet of that culvert, and then all that stuff that's in the culvert, arguably 4 to 6 inches of stuff, is just sitting there. Water's going nowhere. So if we pulled all that debris out of the culvert and lowered the riffle, the level of the lake would definitely have been lower at springtime. It seems very important to try to get that accomplished before winter, because if we get a bunch of heavy rainstorms, et cetera, between now and then, that lake is going to be high. Here comes the ice. We're right back at it. With that thing cleared out, we stand a very good chance of keeping the water down at a more manageable level, less damage on the lake shore. That's kind of what this is all about for me, and it's pretty easy to do, give or take a backhoe and some backbreaking labor. We put numbers in it. It's possible that we could get enough volunteers to get down there and dig this stuff out. Personally, I think that's nuts. A day of a coordinated backhoe dump truck operation gets it done. Those are the numbers that we put in the proposal. So in one day, this is no longer a problem. That's the way we approached that one. The riprap, like I said, is still sort of being studied. If we had to do it tomorrow, we could spend the money that's in there and make a pretty good stab at it. But I think we need to answer a few things like, exactly where's that pipe down there, et cetera. And we will. As long as others feel as though that's a viable route, we will certainly chase it. To me, those are the big giant things in that lake management. And there's a lot of other stuff. It's all littler stuff, all important, but I don't think we should take that time here. And one last note on weed harvesting. If and when we get access to an affordable weed harvester, then we have to figure out how to get the thing in and out of the lake. We have to figure out how to get rid of weeds, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of conversation in the chat box about we could do this and we could do that, but we don't have a weed harvester. And I would guess that it's probably a couple of years out still. I could be off by a year in either direction. As soon as it becomes available, it's a hot topic of conversation, but we don't have 20 grand a year. With whatever the money is that we've heard about, we get about a quarter of the lake. Not even think it's a quarter of the lake done for that kind of money. It'd be selective. Who wants it this year? Not so good.
Yeah. At this moment, I'm not sure. Oh, first of all, well, back up a step. Maria, do you have any other questions that you'd like to?
There are a few questions on the septic system.
Okay.
Maintenance district, et cetera.
And Paul, I'll come back to your point later. Okay, I'm not going to forget you. So go ahead.
Okay. So I guess the easiest question right off is a yes or no one. Have we ever tested our lake specifically for human urine and feces? Was that part of the CSLAP testing at any point?
I suspect not, actually. If you put it,
Okay.
there are indicators of nitrogen and phosphorus that have been tested, but for a DNA test kind of a thing.
Yeah, like a specific, that's what they're asking, specifically for human waste.
That's a good question. I think that's a very valid point. Okay.
Okay. Next question. There was a question about enforcement by the town board. Can the town board force us to have or do a sewer district?
It could. It has the authority, but I've been promised by the town board that they will not do that. They would not. And I, having had multiple conversations with them and sensing their reluctance to do, I don't think they want to do anything that there's not a tidal wave of support for.
At one point, and then here's I think this is all one question here. At one point, we talked about setting up our own community fund to support individual septic replacements that could accommodate making exception to whatever fee for those who've already done upgrades. So kind of, it sounds to me like a fundraiser for a kitty for helping out folks.
A septic management district could, legally speaking, could be created that would collect funds not only to inspect, but also to pool that tax money to replace backyard systems. But in so saying, I'm also aware that there is, and here's where we ran into the problem with DEC on the septic replacement program. DEC told us that Duane Lake was not eligible because it's a private lake, but in legal terms, what they were saying was there is a constitutional prohibition. The New York State Constitution prohibits the state of New York, or indeed towns, from using tax dollars for improvements on private property. So I think to come back to the first part, the answer is no. That kind of pooling of, I know I'm contradicting myself, that pooling of money, of tax dollars to replace septic.
I don't think that was a question.
Oh.
I think it was just setting up a community fund. Just it sounds more like people contribute. Yeah, as far that's what it's. I'm sorry, a little bit confused. Is the asker still present? Maybe they can clarify the question a bit.
Just read the question as it's written.
I did. At one point, we talked about setting up our own community fund to support individual septic replacements.
Right.
That could accommodate making this new sentence. That could accommodate making exception to whatever fee for those who've already done the upgrades.
Okay. So I hear that as two different questions, really.
Yeah.
So what I said earlier about pooling of tax dollars to replace the system, I think addresses the first part of that. I think the second part of that was making exceptions, and there is, if it were a sewer district or a septic replacement program, either one, there can be like a 3-year, 5-year, whatever grace period for not having to connect to the sewer pipe, or if that were the system. If it were a sewer line, the town attorney tells me that if there's a sewer line put in, everybody has to pay a certain basic construction fee, but you don't have to connect to it right away if you have a brand new backyard septic system of your own. They will give you a grace period for that. And then when you connect, then you start paying a full fee. But you would eventually have to connect. Yes, you eventually have to connect. And it's rather much a judgment call on the part of the town code the code enforcement officer as to when your system is now ready to be connected and has to be connected. Now, how that applies to the backyard septic replacement program, that too, I think, would have the same, I don't know this, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding of it is that too would have an exception whereby if you just had a brand new system put in and there was a septic replacement program going on, well, your system would be brand new and functional anyway for maybe 20 years, 25 years. But it would still have to be inspected every 3 years, every 5 years. And if found wanting at some point in that history, then yeah, then it would have to be replaced, even though it was put in 10 years ago, 12 years ago. If it's not working right, it's got to be replaced.
Okay, so new question, if you're ready.
Yeah,
In that last proposal, this is from Vic G to everyone. Didn't they say there is funding to help each house hook up to the system?
that was a surprise to me in Mary Beth's presentation back in January. I had always thought that the cost to run a pipe from your house 1,000 yards out to the road to the main pipe was the homeowner's expense. She said no. She said that was all part of the total overall cost absorbed by everybody, and everybody had to pay for the same, I don't know, 2 or 3 foot hookup from the house to a pump or something next to their house. It was I was very surprised by that, because I specifically asked her that. Mary Beth, did I hear you right? And she said, yeah. So no, there's no big expense to run a pipe from a house that is distant from the road out to the road. That's absorbed by the entire project.
Okay, that's the end of my specific agenda questions.
Okay. Okay.
There was some, if I can chime in for just a second. There were a couple of things people were asking about riprap, and I'm not sure if that got explained. I'm not sure when these questions came in. Just to clarify, the riprap refers to some relatively large rocks, rough angle rocks. You often see them on the roadside around culverts. If somebody has a culvert underneath their driveway, typically the town will come along and install riprap at the opening and at the mouths of your culvert. That varies in size. Who knows what the right size would be? You know, that's another thing we're looking at. At the end of the day, and the proposal is to place that riprap on the face of the dam only. So people were asking if that's going around the show. No, it's just going on the face of the dam to protect the dam. That's it.
We have we had someone request or propose an amendment to the lake management plan. And while these other questions have been going on, I've been sort of pondering how can we handle that exactly, given the limitations of our Zoom meeting and voting by survey basically later on. It kind of gets in the way of Robert's Rules of Order. So I think I'm going to try something here. And please, my fellow board members, don't have a canary, but I think this is what needs to be done. I'm going to unmute everybody, and I will rephrase the motion as I think Paul Karakin would have made it, unless he wants to make it himself. His motion basically was to propose that the riprap part of the lake management plan be removed. That was his proposal. I will ask if there is a second, and if someone says yes, then we'll proceed to further discussion. And if there's no further discussion, we will close the discussion and have a voice vote. And I will just do my best to judge whether the voice vote is for the amendment to take that thing out of the plan or to leave it in. So I'll give it my best shot here. I'm going to try to unmute everybody. If I can find the right gizmo to do that. Let me see here. Stop. I saw it a minute ago. Where'd it go? Security. Aha, there it is. Okay. I've just pushed a button that allows everyone to unmute themselves. So you got to do that yourself. Try to unmute yourself. I don't want to hear any toilets here. Dogs barking.
Feedback.
All right. Is everybody unmuted who wants to do so? Chris Miller, you're not unmuted.
Go up to the top right, you'll see a little blue thing. Press on that.
Yeah, I don't see a little blue thing up there.
Alternatively, at the bottom, there's a button called reactions. If you click that, there's a thumbs up or a clap. If you want to vote yes, you can click thumbs up.
And how does it count them?
You just scan through, but I'm guessing there are some people
Okay,
who
all
are
right,
on voice
all right.
only.
All right, let's do that. All right, so much for the voice vote. Okay, so a motion has been made. Paul, have I restated your motion properly?
I think what I wanted to see is that the budget for that project be zeroed out and leave in that it'll take a year or two, and that the $3,500 is not part of this year's proposal and therefore would have to be reapproved when it does get to the point that it's ready for action.
Okay. All right. I don't think that needs to be restated. I think I've got that.
My vote is yes.
Well, there's a button there, I guess somewhere on your screen to press a thumbs up on the motion. So, and Joe Flores basically just seconded it by saying thumbs up. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion to remove the riprap item, as stated by Paul just now, as best we can, please hit the thumbs up button on your screen. I will do my best to count them here.
Mine is thumbs up.
I don't know if it's necessary, but.
It goes away after a minute, guys. So.
Oh, it does. Oh. Well, keep hitting it then. Okay, tell you what. Let's try this. Just raise your hand. Just raise your hand and hold there, or give a thumbs up if something. Okay, if you're in favor of that motion as presented. Norm, I can't see yours because it's so close to the screen. Okay, we can keep him there. Keep holding him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't think we're on. He's seeing us. Maybe.
Problem is you can't see or hear telephone people unless you unmute.
Is everybody unmuted? Is everybody unmuted? Okay, I'm sorry to make me such a klutz about this, but I want to make sure I'm not making a dumb mistake about how this gets voted. So I'm going to call for a roll call vote. And I see everyone's picture or name on there. I'm just going to ask you to say yes or no. I'm sorry about depriving you of the. Well, I guess it's not a private vote anyway. So Paul, you're yes.
Yes for the amendment.
Okay.
Have to be on video.
Maria.
I mean, have to be on audio.
I had to step out, but I am in agreement with postponing it until we have a better plan. Removal
Okay.
until we have a better plan.
So Flores.
Yes, same.
Chris Miller. No, she said no. Okay. Laura Wiedemann.
Thumb up or down, Laura.
You can,
Well, we have one vote, and I would let Carl vote for us.
I don't see him on here yet. Maybe I'll try to find him.
Did you vote?
No, I couldn't. It's screwed up.
Well,
I don't have the
Oh,
he can tell you.
ability.
what do you want to vote?
They want to postpone the.
Postpone it?
So he votes yes to postpone. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Chris Whitaker.
I would agree to postpone it, but I
Did he give you stuff?
would say that we might want to leave a little bit of money in there in case we need to do something like ask somebody for help with more in-depth survey information.
Okay. Well, so we have to come back anyway. If this is voted to be so amended, we'll have to come back for that anyway. So
Okay.
852 West. Thumbs up. Okay. And Kathy Hoteling looks like. I can't.
My thumb is up. Why can't you see it?
Oh, okay. And Vic
Thumbs up to postpone.
Jim Gain looks like.
Yeah, somehow we got signed in on my daughter's account.
Ah, sure.
Yeah, postpone it, especially since we're not sure about the pipe that goes underneath.
Okay, all right,
Protecting that pipe.
okay. Pat Huff,
Yes.
okay. Nancy Weiss, you still there?
Yes, just on it.
Okay. Carolyn McDonald,
Leave it in, the board's discretion.
I'm sorry, say again, please?
No on the amendment.
No on the amendment, okay, thank you. Art, your wife already voted. Kyle McCraith, you there?
Yes.
Okay, you voting yes, or yes, you're there?
Both.
All right,
We're voting yes.
okay. Mike McClenahan,
Yes.
okay. Annie Kennedy? You're not there anymore, I guess. Sheila? Sheila Donaldson, are you there? Hello, Sheila. All right, John Fredericks. He's not there anymore either.
He had a thumbs up.
Okay, yeah, that was a yes. All right, thank you. Dirk, are you there? Dirk, Annabelle.
I would leave it there.
Leave it there, okay.
John Fredericks gave a thumbs up.
Yes, I got him.
Okay.
Carl, you already voted. Elizabeth Santoro, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, you voting yes for the amendment or no for the amendment?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Kim Roberts, how about you?
Yes.
Leave it in or take it out?
Take it out.
Take it out, okay. All right. Somebody who's calling from 518-852-5697.
Oh, that's me, Tilly. No, oh, do it again. Maybe that's not me. Oh,
The last four digits are 5697.
no. I thought it was somebody.
Phone call, last four digits, 5697. All right. Who else we got? Let's see. David Elliott, did I get you yet?
Yeah, it did.
Okay. I
Just
guess,
say leave it in.
yeah, I guess we got them all. Okay.
Oh, you forgot us.
Who did I forget? Tell me. Where am I?
Runyon.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, yes. Thank you for speaking up.
Thank you.
Are you voting for the amendment to take it out or to leave it in?
To take it out.
All right. Okay. Okay, then. So the plan that will be submitted then to all of you, to all the members for final voting as a plan will be submitted without that riprap part in there. And your vote was 16-3. Okay. So I guess that takes care of that. It was awkward, but we got it done.
I will make those corrections. Not doing it tonight. Yeah, I'll get it to you tomorrow.
Well, yeah, well, there's still time. It's only 8 o'clock.
Really? Come here. Get over here.
Okay. So unless anyone has something else they would like to bring up that was
Thank
not
you,
on the
Dave.
agenda. Yes, someone did? Does someone have something else they would like to bring up?
Are you going to put some amendment in there for some partial money?
That was part of his proposal. He did not specify an amount, but yeah, we'll put some.
Well, what I'm going to do, unless somebody has an issue, is I'm going to simply remove the riprap portion, which removes $700 for riprap. I can't say that anymore. For the rock itself, and $2,500 to stick it where it goes, leaving only $1,000 for arborist work on the trees. I'm leaving that in.
Okay, I think that's close enough for government work. Okay, are we done? Anybody else got anything else they want to bring up? It was painful, but we got through it. It was painful.
I'd like to say there probably are a few questions, as chat's been pretty busy. I know that we have a copy of it, and if there are questions that we can answer after the fact, we will either get back to you directly on them or post something on the website. I'm not sure what that answer is, but it's not gonna, your questions will not go unanswered.
That's true. They will not. Okay. Well, I thank you all for enduring this process with me. And you will receive a ballot with some other questions in there too, just like survey kinds of questions that I'm curious about. We'll receive that by email probably about 5 days from now. So you've got time to think about it.
Hey, it's only 8 o'clock.
Yeah, where did I hear that before? So I guess I will say good night to you all and thank you very much.